Our Workforce 101 for Adult Educators webinar. We're really excited to share this topic with you all today. We know that there are many questions about the workforce system, so we're here today with 3 experts who are going to help us navigate the different services and players in the system so that we can better understand how to get our learners connected and at different ways that our adult education programs can partner with the workforce system. So let's go to the next slide. We have a number of presenters here today. First is Gina Fortney. Gina is the director of the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards. Gina also is the coordinator of a grant from our office that helps to facilitate collaboration between adult education and the workforce system. And she is here representing sort of a statewide perspective of the workforce system. We also are really lucky to have 2 local workforce directors joining us. Barb Chafee is representing Central Minnesota. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services. And she's also the director of the local workforce board that serves Central Minnesota's 11 county area. So welcome, Barb. Rick Roy is joining us from South Washington County. He is the manager of the Workforce and Veteran Services Division for Washington County Community Services Department. And he is also the director of the Washington County Workforce Development Board. And prior to joining Washington County, Rick was at DEED for a number of years. So he also comes with a statewide perspective. So thank you all very much for joining us today. And we look forward to learning from and with you. I'll turn things over to Gina.
Thanks, Astrid. Thanks, everyone, for attending today. We are excited for the opportunity to get to speak to you. Just wanted to go over the presentation today. We'll spend about 30 minutes between myself, Rick, and Barb with the presentation, and then we'll have about 20 minutes to do some small group discussions. And then we'll come back after that to do questions and answers. If you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to enter them in the chat and we'll address those just to make sure that everything is clear moving throughout the presentation. So I wanted to just spend a minute to let you know who the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards is. The acronym is MOB. So if you hear me say MOB, that's what I'm talking about. We're a membership association that represents Minnesota's 16 local workforce boards. And we do a number of different things. I just wanted to highlight our 3 main roles here. We convene local, regional, and state partnerships. The workforce development system is made up of a number of partners across the state. And so it's important to have one kind of central body that is able to facilitate communication and have conversations and be able to come together to have those relationships. A part of that is leading committees, and we have some statewide committees that focus on a few different topics: business engagement and business services, services to job seekers, policy, and then overall workforce operations. And some of these have partners as a part of the committee membership. So Julie Dinkow with ABE is on our Job Seeker Services Committee, and she attends monthly and gives us updates. Also, Department of Human Services has representation on that. And then DEED, the Department of Employment and Economic Development that we work very closely with, is also on those committees. And then we do state and federal advocacy as well. So right now we're in the middle of the Minnesota legislative session. So I'm really busy paying attention to bills and committee hearings, anything that touches workforce. I'm listening in and trying to understand the impact to the workforce system and advocate for things that would affect us. And then we also do federal advocacy. So of course, a lot of our funding is federal funding, the majority of it. And so we do a lot of federal advocacy on policy and funding to advocate for the workforce system. This is Minnesota's workforce system. It shows the local workforce development areas and the regional workforce development areas. So every state is split up into these local areas, and local areas are governed by a local workforce development board. On this map, you can see the different colors indicate where the different areas are. There's 10 in greater Minnesota and then 6 in the metro area. We also have 50 workforce centers. In Minnesota, we went through a rebranding a couple years ago to CareerForce. So our workforce system is known as CareerForce, and then the workforce centers are known as CareerForce centers or CareerForce locations. And there's 50 of those. They're found on the map with the dots. So just a little bit about what the public workforce system is. The public workforce system is basically a no-cost system to for workers, job seekers, and employers where they can get assistance with employment needs, education, training, a whole multitude of services provided by federal, state, and local government agencies and programs. It's federally created through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA is the acronym. That was passed in 2014. Prior to this, the federal law was the Workforce Investment Act, or WIA. You may have heard, for those of you who've been around a long time, you may remember that. And the law requires every state to have a state workforce development board, and then local areas within their state governed by local boards. So Minnesota State Board is the Governor's Workforce Development Board that sits at Deed. Ben Balio is the director of that, and we work closely with him to help write a state plan that this Deed and the Government Workforce Development Board and a lot of different partners, along with ABE, write, and then the local workforce development boards write local workforce plans. The one-stop delivery system, you'll know that as basically the CareerForce system or the CareerForce locations. Some states call them one-stops. The federal branding is American Job Centers or AJCs. So some states still call them AJCs. Across the United States, there's about 2,400. And so any state you go to, they all have this same system. They're all trying to do the same work we're trying to do here and figure out how to do it the best, you know, with all of our partners. I mentioned their CareerForce locations here. I did have a graphic I wanted to share. And I don't know if I can get to it. Here. No, I can't get to it, but I'll see if I can pull that up later. But basically it was, it's an infographic from the Department of Labor that goes over just kind of a national perspective of the different services offered and provided. Oh, here it is. Okay, great. So this is an infographic from the Department of Labor. And it's actually based on data from 2015, unfortunately. So it's a little bit old, but it kind of, it still fits, the messaging still fits here. That year we had 13 million people receive services throughout the country through American Job Centers. You'll see the map there with the depicting the 2,400 locations. Larger states definitely have the most. You see California and Texas have over 100 locations, along with Florida and Kentucky. I'm not sure why Kentucky has so many, but that's interesting. On here, it says Minnesota has between 25 and 49. So it looks like it's a little outdated. We have 50 now. But it's just kind of interesting to see across the country. It gives some data about finding work. Those who found work after receiving services, 66.9%. And those who found work after receiving training through the workforce system was 81.1%. And then at the bottom here, it gives some just interesting stats. 2.6 million people who received unemployment insurance went on to find work. 360,000 unemployed veterans found work, and 156,000 people with disabilities found work who came through and used our services. So I just want you to know you're part of this larger network across the country. And it's really interesting just to see everyone is able to have these partnerships, and every state does it a little bit different, but you're part of a bigger world, definitely. All right, thanks. I'm going to go back to the presentation here.
Gina, this is Heather, and I am helping to facilitate this webinar. Hello, everyone. This is Heather Turngren. I just wanted people to know I included the PDF of that infographic in the chat. So if people are able to open up the chat, they could have access to that infographic. And we do have a question here, Gina, if you're able to take a quick question. I think Teresa Zingery has a question that other people might also would like a response to. It says, where can one find out what cities/school districts are under the jurisdiction of which LWDA? I found one where you can enter in your city name or zip and find out which is closest, but that isn't the same thing. I know my area, but wonder which of my consortium members are also in my same area and can't seem to find a search engine or list of boundaries.
Oh, that's a great. Yeah, on the MOB website, we have it broken down by what counties are in each local workforce development area. And I'll send, it's a PDF, so I'll send that to you after this, so everyone can see what counties fall under each. It doesn't include school districts, but do you think that the county information would be helpful enough?
It might be, Gina. This is Heather, and Astrid just chatted out a link from your website. Okay. And Teresa has a question, are the county boundaries the same?
As far as the local boards, they are organized by county, but I would imagine school districts are not necessarily.
That's correct. And, I can answer that. Yeah, that's not, school districts do vary in their jurisdiction without regard to county boundaries. So, because I know that's in my area, Washington County, we actually spill over into Chisago County for Forest Lake High School. So that's very common. And that's one of the complications for ABE2 and finding out where you fit in with all this, which Barbara and I will be talking about later.
Yeah, but if anyone ever has any questions about what board they're a part of, I can definitely help them figure that out.
Great, Gina. And then I just want people to know that Julie Dinkow from the Minnesota Department of Education also shared a link for the Consortium Maps for adult basic education. And Barb Chafee is asking you if you could go back to the map. Great, it's right there. Yep.
He's got it. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here because, as many of you know, you probably remember me. Back in the mid-90s, I was an adult basic education director for West ABE. In fact, I hired Jill about 24 years ago. So that kind of takes us back for a while. My name is Barbara Chafee. I'm the CEO for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services, but I'm also the director over the 11 county area of local workforce development area 5. And that's what, if you take a look at this map, that light gray area right in the middle of the state is my area. And it's called Region 3-2 because we have Meeker, McLeod, Renville, Candy, Ojai, Wright, Sherburne, Mille Lacs, Sandy, Chisago, and Pine counties, but then we also partner with Stearns and Benton. So all of the ABEs that are in this area, and I have about 15 that are situated in this area, all work with my staff. So, and we'll be talking about that in the breakout sessions. So next. So how does the local workforce development board interface with CareerForce centers? I would like to go back to some things that Gina said. We have 16 local workforce development areas in Minnesota. But what you don't probably realize is that there's about 700 boards nationally in US and US territories. And all of them are nationally recognized boards under the Workforce Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act. And it's hard because you go from WIOA to WIOA. So what I want to do is I want to tell you how important it is when we get to this section about why adult basic education is on our boards. So the local workforce development boards are responsible under WIOA to ensure that there is at least one comprehensive center in our local areas. Well, what the heck is a comprehensive center? And so, whoops, this is the wrong one. Your slide doesn't match up with mine. So there you go. Now back up one. There we go. Now you know what I'm talking about. I've got one sitting in front of me and I'm not watching what's going up in front. So a comprehensive center is really all of the titles under WIOA reside in this center. So you get to Title 1B here, and Title 1B is what I am, what Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services does. We have adult, we have dislocated worker, we have youth programs. And so, but I want to pause for just a second because Title I is the only title under federal law that has responsibilities of the local workforce development boards. And so I wanted you to understand that it is Title I that has the funding for the boards. So we pay for their per diems, we pay for their travel, for their training, for their conferences if they go, and for their board activities. But we're the only title that does that. And if Title 1B is not in the CareerForce location, it is not a comprehensive center. So I just want you to understand the difference between Title I. And Title II is adult basic ed. That's you. That is, you have to provide or select someone to be on that board. And Rick is going to go through the information. So I just want you to be aware that is really important under federal law and state statute that adult basic education needs to be on that in our board. Title III is Wagner Pizer, that's also job service. And then Title IV is vocational rehabilitation services, and that also includes state services or services for the blind. There are a total of 13 other related federal programs that also can be in the CareerForce Center. I'm just gonna, I was gonna name a few, but I would rather, I'll just name a few like Job Corps, Jobs for Veterans, Migrant, Seasonal Farm Workers, and TANF, MFIP, SNAP, and Senior Services, a whole bunch of others can be related and in the centers. The board is responsible to ensure that services from these 4 titles are easily accessible, either with staff on site or co-located, or through what Rick calls the warm handoff. And I call it a referral system. So I'm going to tell you and give you an example. My CareerForce staff and ABE is co-located in Monticello. And we have a great person called Michelle Higgins. And I don't know if she's on or not, but if she is, hi, Michelle. Michelle has her own computer lab. So my career counselors, if a client comes in and they need GED, they will walk that student or that client down the hall, and they will sit down with Michelle, and the 3 of them will sit down and kind of create a plan for this individual. Let's say that John needs GED, or he needs a boiler's license, or he needs help with the computer. That can be identified right there with the 3 of them. And so If ABE is not on site, then the career counselor, maybe they go on Zoom, or maybe they call on the phone, but they call with that client there. So the three of them are talking, and the three of them are building support system around this client. The issue comes when, you know how you hand a person a card, they come in, they're a client, they say, hey, go see Michelle, but Michelle is in a different, she's on a different street and down the road. You know, people that they walk out of your facility and about zero go to another facility. So it is that you know, bringing those people together and working together, that's really important. So next. On my screen. So the next thing is that, you know, who leads the CareerForce centers and the local workforce development boards. And so the CareerForce centers are led by, or, you know, supported by the local boards in coalition with the OneStop operator. In Minnesota, the role of the OneStop operator is to ensure daily coordination of services among the community providers. There are many, many things that the OneStop operator does, but the most important is focusing on our clients and making sure that we are serving them the best way that we can with all of the partners in the center. The role of the local board is related to CareerForce centers to select the OneStop operator and to ensure that certification of the comprehensive CareerForce center is maintained. On the local board, there are membership on the local board is very prescriptive as it comes in WIOA law. The first thing is that the majority of board members, and that's like, for us, it's 51%, have to represent the local businesses. So in our area, we might serve 700 to 800 businesses a year. And so we have a very important connectivity with those businesses. Also on the board are 20% from labor and at least one member from higher education. In our area, it's Ridgewood College president. And then adult basic ed. Adult basic ed, again, state statute, federal law requires that you be on our board. And then employment services, one job service manager needs to be on there. One vocational rehabilitation services manager needs to be on there. And then we can add economic and community development individuals to also be on our board. The minimum requirement is 19 members. We have, let's see, we have 21 members. And if you went to Texas, you probably have 50. And our boards can, oh, my dog just decided to come in. So I'm going to roll this over and to Rick, because he's going to give you some really good information on the dynamics of what I was just talking about. So.
All right, thanks, Barb. And so one of the questions you guys asked is, why do ABE professionals need to know about workforce development? First of all, as Barb cited, the legal requirements, you are in WIOA. And actually at the time of its implementation, I was working at DEED, overseeing the implementation of WIOA, and I worked very closely with Todd and Julie on a number of issues. So kind of miss you guys, but anyway, so yeah, it's there in the law that you're one of the core partners for the workforce development system. And one of the key pieces to that is being a part of the MOU, which the Memorandum of Understanding, which describes how ABE and our other partners cooperate and coordinate services, as Barb was describing. And one of the main focuses we've had since the implementation of WIOA is ensuring that warm handoff. As Barb described in person, walking down the hall, that's great when you can do that. When you aren't co-located, it means making the phone call on behalf of that customer to make that connection. Because what we find out, and this is what Todd told me a lot, is that if you just gave someone, okay, here's a business card for someone you should connect with, a lot of times that would fall flat on making that connection. So Minnesota has really focused on that warm handoff. So hopefully that's happening both ways. And then regardless of legal requirement, it just makes sense. You guys are such a key part of that safety net for so many people who need those basic skills to be viable in the labor force and hopefully getting to that family sustaining wage so we can reduce dependency on other types of public assistance. So it's really key. And some of the examples that I can share from Washington County is that we got a P2P grant with Renewal by Andersen, a window manufacturer, and ABE was there to help provide basic English skills in the context of what's needed on the manufacturing floor at Renewal by Andersen. So it was a real critical bridge piece for us. And that's what ABE, Todd always talked about that too, is that that safety net for education of people who didn't make it successfully through for whatever reason. A lot of times it's not on them, it's on the system for not adequately being prepared for people with various situations. So you guys are really key, and again, it just makes sense to have that there. The way you guys can contextualize learning and things of that nature is just really, really critical. Back in the 90s, when I was still working for a local workforce investment board in Southeast Minnesota, we worked very closely with ABE on the English language proficiency, because if you recall back in the 90s is when we had the huge influx of Somali refugees and other populations. So that's really critical. You guys are such a vital role to the success of the system, and we need to continue to strive to find ways to link our activities together. So, next slide. So the connection to adult career pathways, again, as I mentioned, you guys are very key to that, and career pathways has become a central part of the law. In fact, the state has to describe, how it's supporting it across the state, and we have to address it in our regional plans and our local plans. Using labor market information to drive where are the jobs in demand that have a pathway to a family sustaining wage. So those are the things we looked at. And again, a lot of times those barriers to getting to a family sustaining wage has to do with educational level. And so again, you guys play that key role in providing that bridge service so that an individual would be able to take, and I like to say post-high school, not post-secondary, because everybody tends to think four-year degree. Post-high school is any educational opportunity after high school. So that's really key there also, and a great way for us to be partnering together. And I'm sure, Barb, you would have plenty of experiences too with so many consortia in your area. And then again, the examples are there. I guess I just kind of gave one with Renewal by Andersen. We're also doing the same now. We've, one of our objectives in Washington County, career pathway objectives, is healthcare. As we're having a shortage all around the state, not the country. And ABE has been very critical in developing the bridge programming that would enable somebody to get to the level of being able to get a CNA or home health aide certification. And again, looking at other opportunities where that could lead to, and phlebotomy as a, I can't remember one of the names, but basically an assistant at a CVS, at a pharmacy, farm tech, there we go. Things like that. So there is just so many opportunities for us to, and I like to say integrate. We're not trying, if you align services, that leaves gaps. But when we integrate and there's those warm handoffs and services are overlapping, we have a much better system and success rate when we take that kind of approach. And hopefully, you'll see those opportunities and be able to join those opportunities or enhance those opportunities within the local area that you reside and all work in. It's really key. And I'm going to just go back a little bit. Funny guy here at Deed. He was in IT and I worked with him a lot. And we all talk about silos, people working in silos. He said, Rick, no, they're cylinders of excellence. And we just need to find a way, who's going to be that camshaft that drives those cylinders so that they're congruent with each other and not fighting against each other or rubbing against each other. How can we better work together to integrate our services so people are getting all the services they need at the right time? and able to move them forward. So I've been nothing but pleased with my experience, both at the local level and with the state, in working with ABE. You guys have all been great partners. And I've worked across the state with many of you, or many of your local areas. So I know the relationships are solid, and we just need to continue to look at how we can build on those. So, so that's my 2 slides, I believe. So back to Gina, maybe.
Thank you, Rick. All right, I don't think we got any more questions in the chat, so we can proceed. The next item we're going to do is move into 3 small group discussions. We have 3 questions we'll be looking at. What are the biggest challenges you see in your adult learners to obtaining employment? Share about your experience partnering with workforce development programs in the past. What has worked well and what could be improved? And then what partnerships or resources have been most helpful to assist your adult learners move forward in a career pathway? And what partnerships or resources do you still need? So everyone's going to be automatically put into a breakout room, and we will have note takers taking notes to capture all your feedback.
Great, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you'll see there's a note sheet in the chat that you might want to open up. It's got those same questions, and you'll have a good chunk of time in these groups. We're going to do about 18 minutes and then a couple minutes for you to come back. So feel free when you're in your breakouts to go ahead and turn your camera on and your mic on and have a little human time. So I'll go ahead and open those up and I'll pause the recording.
But I do want to say we had a great discussion going in our breakout. We only got through really 2 of the questions and we just started on the 3rd, but it was really great to hear everyone's different perspectives, and everyone had, you know, different roles. And so that was really cool to hear about different experiences. So I'll just pause and we can see what other questions people have, whether it's, you know, about information we presented earlier, or perhaps something came up for you during the discussion time, or if it's a workforce question that you have that we didn't get to earlier. If you still are kind of uncertain about something, please feel free to ask.
Gina, we had one, I think, really good question that came up in our group that maybe others share. People wondering where they can find contact information for those in their local CareerForce center, or those on their local workforce development board. Where is the best place for people to go to get that information?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on the MOB website, that mob/mn.org, we have the board directors information, and most boards have a website, I would say, but one thing I need to work on is, oh, I see Teresa said, our workforce development board, the names and contact information is on our website. Yeah. One thing I'm going to be working on is on the MOB site, ensuring that all those websites are there so you can more easily access that. But you can definitely find your the board directors and contact information on the MOB site.
And Gina, where I'm on the site now and I'm not finding it, can you tell me or put a direct link to where that information is on the website?
Let me pull it up really quickly here myself. Yeah. 1 second. Okay, let me go back to share my screen. Okay, so on the MOB website, go to workforce system and then workforce development areas. You'll see that map again. And then under providers, it'll pull up this information. So it'll show each area, their name, the executive director or director, and then this is all the counties that each area covers. So this is where you can kind of determine, if you're not sure what board you would fall under, this is where you can see what counties they serve.
That's great. Thanks, Gina. And what about the CareerForce centers?
So CareerForce centers, I'm going to take you somewhere else. I'm going to take you to CareerForceMN.com. And actually, we didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but CareerForceMN.com is a site managed by Deed. It was originally started through a grant Deed received through the Department of Labor. And it's kind of like an online resource to an online website to identify resources for career seekers, employers. You can create an account here and search for jobs on here. You can get help identify online workshops, all kinds of different things. So, and all the ABE partners have their own little partner page on here. So if you want to find a CareerForce location, go to find a CareerForce. I'm going to type in my zip code, 55418, apply. So this will bring up, it's set for 40 miles. So this will bring up all the ones within a 40-mile radius. This CareerForce from anywhere, this links to kind of like a virtual CareerForce where you could be able to get help with virtual services. And I believe at another ABE meeting, Julie Dinkow has me doing some more covering of this website. But if you haven't been here, I definitely recommend going and kind of playing around with it and seeing what's on there. But this is where you can find a lot of information. So let me just, I'll show you here. I'll click on CareerForce in Minneapolis South. So this shows their hours, where they're located, different events. Right now, unfortunately, of course, all our in-person workshops are canceled, but it does list on here online workshops that people can take advantage of. So like on here, you can sign up for individual one-on-one assistance, or there should be additional workshops on here. So yeah, there's a lot of good resources.
And Gina, Julie Dinkow points out that you'll be speaking at the next Regional Transitions Coordinator meeting. So that will be really a great way that you can be sharing information. And then Astrid also notes there's going to be a session on CareerForce at the March 5th, what we're calling the Unregional Conference, which is a conference for our adult basic education field.
Oh, right. Great. Okay, good. Yeah, I think it's just a great resource to be able to become accustomed with, and it points out a lot of partners across the state and workforce you can find on here too.
And Gina, it perhaps is not so much a question as a statement from the group that I was taking notes. A lot of our discussion went around educating employers about cultural differences, about noticing skills versus a degree, and many of those obstacles that our learners encounter. Do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, so, you know, I know a lot of the workforce boards are doing that in their own ways, having resources available. The board, Rural Minnesota SEP, and that the whole area around Detroit Lakes kind of, they're doing this inclusive employer signification that employers can go through, and I think it's some type of training they go through, and then they're able to get this inclusive employer signifier that they've learned about how to be an inclusive employer. That's one example. I'll see if Barb or Rick want to jump in on that if you want, but that is something that we have over the past couple of years worked on consistently. Barb, did you want to add?
Sure, we're actually doing that very same thing. It's called the IWE, where we're going into, our board has approved this, that we're going, Tammy's area and my area are going into businesses to help them understand, you know, diverse populations. Also, some of the things that have occurred is that You know, Tammy Beery is over the St. Cloud CareerForce Center, and they have a lot of Somali population there, and she has gone into my area to help out with some of the businesses that needed to hire people like overnight. They needed like 50 employees because they were manufacturing and they needed the night crew. So she went in and helped them understand the Somali population, worked with their management, worked with their supervisors to really help them understand the different culture. And so we're doing a lot in our area just to serve diverse populations. And I know when I was a director for adult basic education, I went into many businesses. And in fact, I had like 3 or 4 at one time that had hired Latino population, and but they couldn't speak English. So we went in and had classes right on site. And I'm sure that many of you have done that same thing. And so it is really about their culture, helping them understand that culture, but also you doing your part in helping them to understand English too. So
thank you, Barb. Yeah, and I also should point out, I just noticed on here on this CareerForce site, there's a section called Creating an Equitable Workplace. And there are some resources here we have for employers. So I would say every area is doing it in a little bit differently. And then there's also some statewide resources.
And I would just like to add that it goes beyond hiring, and that's where we've been stuck for so long. My master's paper was actually on cultural competency, which is how well an organization actually works within a diverse culture. Not cultural diversity is the count. Cultural competency is the capacity to be successful with diversity. And there's a lot of models out there that are all based pretty much on, I think his name is T.R. Cross. He was kind of the basis of my paper. And this was, 15 years ago, so I don't remember it that well. But anyway, it's what I continue to go back to, and something even Renewal by Anderson spoke of as it relates to the diversity that's growing in religion, that in the Twin Cities, in the metro area, I think it was Minneapolis, a bunch of corporations got together and they started visiting these churches to get a better understanding of the culture of that religion. So what rural Minnesota SEP is doing is great, but it's just phase 1. The hiring practices is phase 1 of a much longer task we have to accomplish. So.
Thank you, Rick.
I think all of our funding, once it goes through the legislature for dislocated worker and other funding, is also all going to be based on diversity. So I think that all of us are looking forward to that. Many of our boards have already started, and so, but you're going to see a big change in Minnesota in the next couple of years. So it's something to be aware of and work towards.
Yeah, and I'll just add the Governor's Workforce Development Board that I mentioned earlier, they're responsible for writing a 4-year state plan. And one of the goals of the state plan is to address equity. And so that's something that as a state, all the local workforce boards is working on as well around that state goal. So it's a big topic for all of us. So I'll just pause there and see if there's any other maybe questions or comments.
Gina, and another area of interest that came up in our group was around the ways that the workforce system can support adults who are pursuing education and with adult basic education. And I think there was some questions and confusion about how an adult might qualify for those additional supports and which programs might support adults with their for their education. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, So, you know, I think WIOA really likes the idea of co-enrolling participants. So maybe you're someone who needs ABE services, but you're also in need of support services, and eventually you'll need to be in some type of training program. So possibly you could co-enroll in the WIOA adult program. And so that would be an instance where you would work with your Title I provider, your adult WIOA, to see what that person would be qualified for. So making those connections with your CareerForce locations are really important. One of the people in our group did mention that she referred people, she kind of had a contact she knew at her local CareerForce location that she could refer their adult learners to. And I think having those personal relationships are really good. So maybe you do have an adult learner that you think may qualify for one of our programs or could benefit from one of our programs. And so being able to, you know, pick up the phone or email that person and say, hey, does this sound like someone you could enroll in one of your programs? And I know it's difficult because you all may not know all the programs we have, right? And you don't need to know about eligibility or things like that. But as long as you have, you know, a contact, that person can kind of figure out what type of supports they may be eligible for through the other WIOA programs. And so that's why I think events like these are helpful because we are making those connections here. And hopefully for those of you who don't have contacts at your local CareerForce locations, you're able to make them after this. It is a little bit difficult, you know, ideally you'd be able to walk in and introduce yourself and start forming those relationships. But since most locations are closed right now due to COVID, I know that's a challenge. But I would say all the directors are really supportive of better relationships with ABE and referrals. And so definitely a director could help you out. I see Barb has.
Yeah, you know, if you haven't connected, well, first of all, if you haven't connected with your director from that area, please do that. You know, all you have to do is connect with the mob site that Gina just gave you, and you saw all the names and the counties. All you'd have to do is contact me and say, hey, you know, this is this partnership that we're supposed to have. We just happen to be ahead of the game because I brought ABE into, as soon as I got this position 21 years ago, I brought adult basic education on site. And I sat down with my partners and that were in the Workforce Center, and now we're calling CareerForce centers. And we talked about our services. We talked about what we each did. So I think that all of a sudden the bell went off and all of my partners go, oh, you mean I can send my client down to the ABE lab? Yes, and vice versa. So, you know, not everybody is co-located. Maybe at some point you'd like to be. I think that would be, you know, a really great thing. But the thing is those partnerships should be strong. So please contact the person that is on that list and, you know, talk with them, because what they'll do is they'll send their staff out. You should be, like, our staff and ABE know each other so well in each one of the areas that they come up with some really cool, innovative ideas. And so I've been very, you know, forthright in saying that we're the only ones in the state that offer that $10 an hour for youth to sign up for ABE and GED if they qualify. So we're excited about that partnership.
Great, thank you, Barb.
Dina, this is Heather. There's another question from the panel that Astrid chatted out. How have referral processes to and from ABE changed during COVID?
That's a good question. Barbara, Rick, could you respond?
I can answer that one. It hasn't changed. My staff are connected every single day to ABE. I mean, they do it by Zoom, they do it by WebEx, they do it by Teams. it hasn't changed because they're just because of technology, you know. And I know that in greater Minnesota, the technology hasn't been that good, but they're still getting together via technology in their areas. So it's working. We have to keep, connecting with each other, but it's kind of like, I don't know if I think I'm on more meetings now than I was before. So it hasn't stopped us from getting together, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. It hasn't interfered with our relationships either.
Great, thank you.
And this is Heather again. Just another question for you all, because many of us are working with adult career pathways, and this is one of our adult career pathway webinars. What is a great way for an adult career pathway program to directly connect with those employers to find out what are the training needs, what are the skills needed? Do you have any ideas about how to directly go to those employers in the area?
I can answer that one, Heather. We have business services individuals in all three. I've divided my 11 counties into three. We've got 7E, 7W, and 6E. I have a workforce development. I have a business services coordinator in each one of those areas. They work with adult basic education to talk to employers. They're like I said, we serve between 700 and 800 employers a year. This, I have to go to 700 because during COVID, it's been really difficult, but they still connect with them. So we have access to those employers. So when ABE wants to connect, they're going through my staff to also connect because they all connect at the same time, and bring the employers into the meetings too. So that's how we do it in my area.
Okay. I would say it's very similar in that ABE would come to us, and we probably have a relationship of some kind with that employer, and we help make the connection.
Great, thank you, Rick and Barb. So I would say my earlier advice, if you're not sure in your local area, definitely ask your director about that as well.
Thank you. And I noticed that Allison Wilcox shared some information. Allison, do you want to speak to that information you shared in the chat for a moment?
Sure. Yes, I there's a person named Anissa. I don't know how to pronounce her last name correctly, but I actually worked with her when she came back from Somalia, and she's a kind of an advocate for especially Somali women and children in order to change policies in Somalia. And I was fortunate to work with her. She was our volunteer for a while with our career area. And now she's the DEED's new assistant commissioner for immigrants, helping immigrants and refugees connect better to jobs, and also help employers connect to and understand how to connect with immigrants. So I was really happy to hear that she got the position because she's had a lot of experience more on the systems side. And changing policies and systems within organizations to help people who have had barriers. So basically, what's great about Anissa, she already has put together some CareerForce webinars about that are targeted towards immigrants and refugees, as well as having employers come in and talk about their jobs, employers who are very friendly to and culturally more open to accepting some, more immigrants and refugees. So I think there's already been like 1 or 2 webinars that I've been on. I've even invited some of our students on there. So there is work towards in that progress area. So I'm very excited to see that happen. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, the assistant commissioner, she joined DEED, I think maybe less than a year ago, but she's really hit the ground running and has started doing a lot of these events. And she's come to a few mob committee meetings to talk about her work, and it's really exciting what she's doing. So yeah, I think we'll continue to look towards her leadership there for resources.
And Gina, this is Heather again. I put the link to that article within our shared document that we were taking notes, so I have that there.
Perfect, thank you.
Gina, I'm not sure if you can see, Barbara chatted out CMJTs.
I was going to, sorry, I was going to take it off, and then I hit the wrong thing and it just jumped over. I started to write something. I forgot what it was because I was listening. So just disregard it.
Okay, I thought it was a new acronym I hadn't heard. So I thought you were gonna let us know.
I was gonna write something about CMJTS does this, and then I went on and said it anyway, so thanks. Sorry.
It's okay. All right, well, I know we have about 10 minutes left, but if there's no other questions or comments, we can end a little bit early. There is one more slide here with some announcements. Heather, would you like me to go to that?
That would be fine. Thank you, Gina, so much. And thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Rick, for sharing your information as well as meeting us in small groups to have a discussion. I am just gonna share this note-taking guide. I find it really helpful that we can put all of our ideas in one document. I'm putting it into the chat for you all to grab it. I just want to let you all know that I'll be uploading some of this information into our ACP, which is Adult Career Pathway Schoology group. So if you're looking for the recording or other documents that we shared, it should be in that Schoology group. If you need information on how to get access to that, you can always check at the Atlas website or email me. But right now, I'd like to make sure that you are saving the date for some future Adult Career Pathway events that we have happening. You can see our first one is titled the Spring 2021 Unregional. So as you know, we usually have the North Regional, the South, the Metro Regional, and now with everything being virtual, we will do another virtual. All of us will be together on Friday, March 5th. Patsy chatted out the link if you'd like to register. All of these virtual events are free, and we do have an ACP session which will be on CareerForce, and it will be presented by Liz Jennings, and that should be a great connection from what we've learned today. We also will have another Adult Career Pathway webinar. We will have 4 this year. This will be our final webinar, and it will be similar to what we did back in November when we had a career pathway networking all around healthcare. This one coming up in May will be around manufacturing. So please make sure to connect with any of your lead teachers or curriculum developers or managers in the area focusing on manufacturing. And that will be on Wednesday, May 19th. And then we also want to remind you all that Summer Institute will be virtual this year. And there is now a call for presentations that is open. And Patsy has linked within the chat that you can certainly apply to share all of your expertise within our field. And thank you all for joining us on our 3rd Adult Career Pathway webinar.
Great, thank you. And I just want to thank Heather for her help in putting today's webinar together. And also thank you to our presenters, Gina and Barb and Rick. If you guys want to come on camera for a moment so we can thank you, give you high fives. Thanks for being here.
See all my colleagues again. So
yeah. So thank you so much. We'll stick around for a couple of minutes if people have an additional question you wanted to ask the presenters, but I'll go ahead and stop the recording at this point, and we hope to see you on March 5th and then also at the subsequent events. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.